What was your name?
Cruella.
With a name like Cruella de Vil, i.e. Cruel Devil, it's pretty much spelled out that you're going to be the bad gal.
It's spelled devil, but it's pronounced Deville.
Some of Cruella's core traits are that she's insane, she wants to make clothing out of the most lovable creatures in the world,
What a horrid little white rat!
and she's pure evil.
I'm a really terrible person.
But if you think about it, there's something odd about the fact that Cruella is the Disney villain with the ultimate evil name, while her willingness to kill puppies is instinctively abhorrent to most of us.
Poison them, drown them, bash them on the head.
She's actually a far less extreme menace than many other Disney villains who seek to dominate, wipe out, and oppress their whole societies. Perhaps what's always been most frightening and explosive about Cruella is that she's a single woman who doesn't much care for the ideas of marriage and family.
She's going to have a baby.
Oh, you poor thing. I'm so sorry.
Her wicked power is that she's a threat to the family unit. In the 1956 Dodie Smith The 101 Dalmatians novel, she does have a spouse, though doesn't much like him or respect him. But in her Birth on Screen, the 1961 Disney adaptation, Cruella became happily single, even anti-domesticity.
This horrid little house is your dream castle.
And beginning with the 1996 live-action film starring Glenn Close, she also became a career-driven girl boss of the fashion world. Tracking the evolution of Cruella through her various adaptations, we can see a mirror of our society's anxieties and discomfort around unmarried or ambitious women. As this epitome of villainy gets the sympathetic star treatment in 2021's Cruella starring Emma Stone, the centering of Cruella indicates a growing respect for her type, while her lingering evil betrays that the rebellious, non-traditional woman still has power to unsettle us.
I want to make art. And I want to make trouble.
Here's our take on Cruella's journey to becoming a protagonist, and how she encapsulates our culture's fear and awe of the archetypal spinster. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified about all our new videos. This video is brought to you by Skillshare, an awesome online learning community with thousands of classes to help you develop your curiosity and passions. The first 1,000 Take viewers to click the link in the description will get 30% off an annual premium membership, so you can explore your creativity. Even if you've already had a free trial of Skillshare, you can still take advantage of this amazing offer. The appeal of Cruella is she's so unapologetically, stylishly evil.
You sweep into the room. You do this with broad gestures. I don't like to use the word camp, but that was basically it.
One of only 3 animated villains to make it onto the AFI's Top 50 Villains list, she's so deliciously bad, it's fun to watch. In the 1961 film, Cruella's silhouette is sharp and angular. She has a skeletal, pale face. Her black and white color scheme is punctuated with accents of blood red, and the evil, sickly green color from her cigarette. She has a manor called Hell Hall.
2 nights past, I heard puppy barking over at Hell Hall.
You mean the old DeVille place?
It's striking that 101 Dalmatians creates such a close association between these signifiers of pure devilry and being an unattached woman of a certain age. Note the way Cruella is introduced to us, as a creepy shadow darkening the couple's door, while Roger composes a song insisting she's evil.
To see her is to take a sudden chill.
We've been told almost nothing about her, and when she enters, her behavior is certainly unconventional, but not yet definitively evil.
How are you? Miserable, darling, as usual, perfectly wretched.
But Pongo immediately backs away from her and snarls.
Here, dog. Here. Here, dog.
She doesn't even get to speak for herself or sing her own song like most Disney villains. The audience, like the characters in the movie, are just supposed to know and trust that she's evil, based solely on the way she's presented visually, animal instincts, and the fact that she's eccentric and single. And while Anita and Cruella are said to be classmates, Cruella looks markedly older. From there, the film links being unmarried with having bad values. Cruella cares only for riches and materialistic delights.
Isn't that a new fur coat? My only true love, darling. I live for furs.
She's insincere,
Anita, darling.
abrasive and entitled, not ladylike, and constantly berates the bumbling men in her life.
Why, you imbecile.
She embodies not just greed, but also that stereotypically female sin, vanity. And she's shrouded in evil spinster imagery compared to a witch.
That witch?
And the spider.
She's like a spider waiting for the kill.
Marriage and the idea of a heteronormative nuclear family is right at the center of 101 Dalmatians' premise, which is why Cruella's singleness and position outside of a normative family unit is so villainized.
Poor Roger is your bold and fearless Sir Galahad.
This movie at its core is a story about getting married, settling down, and having babies. It begins with Pongo lamenting his lack of a partner.
The old notion that a bachelor's life was so glamorous and carefree was all nonsense. It was downright dull.
He sets up a charming meet-cute for Roger and Anita, and for himself and Perdita. Then both pairs walk down the aisle, ready to enter a life of domestic bliss.
We lived in a small house near the park. A modest little place, but just right for two couples who were just starting out.
When Perdita is about to have her puppies, the men wait outside the delivery room with anxious anticipation, a traditional rite of passage for new fathers. And once the puppies have arrived, there's a particularly long scene of the wholesome young family sitting around the TV before bed, which conjures a very 1950s image of idyllic suburban domesticity. In short, family values are really important to the heroes of this story, so it makes sense that the villain of their story is a woman outside of this standard idea of happiness who doesn't hold the ideology of family sacred.
Oh, I'd like a nice fur, but there are so many other things.
Sweet, simple Anita.
Single career women in film and TV have long been viewed as threats to happy family life, often because of the fear that they're secretly looking to steal a married man.
Why is it that all the interesting guys are always married?
Cruella is not a challenge to Roger and Anita in this sense of being a temptress, but in an even more extreme way. She wants to murder their puppies.
I don't care how you kill the little beast, but do it! And do it now!
Who are an easy stand-in for their babies.
First the puppies, then the babies.
Thus, the narrative taps into that fear that an unmarried woman is a challenge to family life, simply because she's chosen differently, and goes further to make that danger literal and life-threatening. Her long cigarette holder with her haze of green smoke makes her appear literally toxic. And as she spreads smoke around Roger's and Anita's home, there's a sense that her poisonous presence and rotten aura are defiling the family's little sanctuary. Many saw fast-living actress Tallulah Bankhead as inspiration for Cruella's antics and Mary Wickes as inspiration for her looks, but Mark Davis, one of Cruella's original animators, said, "I put something of all the bad women I've known into Cruella."
When can the puppies leave their mother? 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Never.
What?
Still, as much as she was seemingly condemned by her story, Cruella's flair, style, and humor, and most of all, her delicious wickedness, made her fabulous, as the woman who voiced her, Betty Lou Gerson, understood very well.
To me, she was such a fun character. I loved her. I thought she was wonderful.
Whereas the original 1961 101 Dalmatians poster put the dogs front and center, we can see from a quick glance at the posters for the 1996 live-action 101 and 2000 sequel 102 Dalmatians and Glenn Close's top billing that by then Disney was aware Cruella was the one audiences were coming for.
I think she's flawless. She's a magnificent villain.
As she transforms into an Anna Wintour-like fashion mogul, we get a more fleshed-out window into Cruella's love of her career and her view that marriage deprives women of the opportunity to thrive as professionals.
More good women have lost a marriage into war, famine, disease, and disaster. You have talent, darling. Don't squander it.
These shifts show our culture's increasing respect for and awe of successful women, at least in theory, but her character is still cartoonishly evil.
And catch those puppies!
Director Stephen Herrick told The Washington Post that when he finally committed to doing the movie, the first thing I thought about was Cruella, pure evil. And Close also saw this as the essence of the character. She told the Associated Press in 1996, "I was really determined that Cruella be as bad as possible. I think Cruella basically has no redeeming human characteristics, except for her wicked sense of humor and the engaging way that she's gleeful in her evilness."
I'm gonna cut you off, then cut you up.
Cruella is also shown to be brought down by vanity. At the end, she must be soundly defeated.
My business, my reputation, my life has been ruined.
And deprived of her glamour, drenched in molasses and manure, framed as insane.
Cruella de Vil has the last laugh.
While Roger and Anita get their domestic happily ever after.
Our baby is a year old. We have a new house, a new life.
And we have each other.
The Cruella-Anita dynamic fits into a common story template where the scary spinster or evil career woman is a contrast to or cautionary tale for a sweet younger woman.
What if I don't want to live the way you live?
The 1996 film makes Cruella Anita's exacting boss.
You're fired. You're finished. You'll never work in fashion again.
A mold that would be fleshed out further in dark fashion mentor story 2006's The Devil Wears Prada.
If you don't go, I'll assume you're not serious about your future. At Runway or any other publication.
Meryl Streep's Miranda Priestley, who seems in part inspired by Cruella and channels her aesthetic, was a celebrated icon who brought awareness to how her society wants her to fail as a woman.
Snow Queen drives away another Mr. Priestley.
But both the 1996 101 Dalmatians and The Devil Wears Prada ultimately turned the female boss into a symbol of selfishness.
You want this life? Those choices are necessary.
While the original Cruella's entitled heiress persona is replaced by a hard-working boss one, her outrage upon finding out Anita is marrying stems from a sense of personal betrayal.
How could she do this to me?
She's losing a good worker who's contributing to her empire.
My competitors are going to suss out who you are, and they're going to try to steal you away.
2021's Cruella reworks this dark mentor story structure by giving Cruella a dark Miranda Priestley-esque fashion mentor of her own, the Baroness von Hellman, in a setup that's immediately drawn comparisons to Devil Wears Prada.
Foolish, unhinged, or you're fired.
Laurels for spring. Groundbreaking.
If Cruella is now in the ingenue spot, though, she's far from the wholesome, naive soul we expect for this character. Instead, as director Craig Gillespie says, the Baroness symbolizes the establishment.
Here's to me.
While Cruella has a rebellious nature.
The Baroness is at the height of fashion in the 1970s. How is Cruella gonna disrupt the establishment?
So this reframes the clash to speak to a more interesting idea of what it means to be devilish, which can be found in a number of literary works, to be a destroyer of established orders.
Wreaking havoc is my personal specialty.
To challenge the powers that be and conventions that everyone else conforms to. The film still retains the Dark Mentor's core selfishness.
She has made it me or her. And I choose me.
And the extreme individualism and self-love that define Cruella herself.
It was a very narcissistic day. Which is perfect for Cruella.
But here, that radical selfishness is given an edge as it's linked to the drive for survival in a hostile world.
She thought she owned everyone.
Meanwhile, in recent years, Cruella has also been increasingly getting scarier and less cartoonish. Debuting in 2014, Once Upon a Time's Cruella is more formidable than her predecessors in both her goals and her abilities. Instead of being defeated by dogs, she controls them.
I can send 100 snarling dogs after you.
Succeeds at killing them.
Oh, you needn't fear the dogs anymore. They're with Mother now.
And even kills people.
I simply taught them a new command. Kill.
This Cruella also gets an origin story, inviting us to at least try to understand her. But while the show may raise the prospect that Cruella was shaped by an equally evil mother, who was also an aging woman without a man.
And now that your father's gone, we're going to make a few changes around the house, Cruella.
In the end, it illuminates that it's not any exterior factor that made Cruella who she is.
She was always a troubled little girl.
She's simply cruel by nature and always has been.
Just stay away from Cruella. She takes the things you care about and she destroys them.
Whereas the sympathetic villain story so often softens or excuses its character's villainy, passing the blame for what the villain becomes.
Everybody is awful these days. It's enough to make anyone crazy.
The whole point and essence of Cruella is that she's 100% bad.
Some people struggle not to be drawn into the darkness. Why not splash in and have fun?
And we can see in 2021's Cruella as well that this is the origin story not of an innocent being led astray, but of young Cruella's seeds of evil blossoming and maturing.
I was born brilliant. gone bad. And a little bit mad.
I also loved that she's kind of embracing her nature.
Like other sympathetic villain protagonist stories, the prequel to 101 Dalmatians does make Cruella, known at first as Estella, more relatable in order to turn her into a protagonist we're meant to root for. It builds identification with her by turning her from a spoiled heiress into a scrappy, self-made hustler.
It's a world of opportunity. And I was meant for more in this life.
Whose anti-establishment rage is understandable, creative, empowering. One trailer advertises that her story isn't black and white. So while Gillespie and Stone both downplay the likeness to Joker, the film does to an extent show the figure as shaped by her environment. But it also strongly embraces the once upon a time explanation that Cruella is inherently, inevitably evil.
But the thing is, I'm not sweet, Stella. I never was.
Essentially, she's evil thanks to nature.
That's ugly.
That's cruel. Name's Estella, not Cruella.
But that nature is well nurtured in order to come out and flourish.
Get your desiccated little brain working.
It's a story of nature versus nurture.
The other major way the film transforms Cruella is to make her more explicitly than ever before aspirational. This Cruella is a cool, bold punk in jaw-dropping fashions.
It was just so much fun with Cruella's character. She's fully ingrained in this punk sensibility.
She's also young, and while this draws viewers more than ever into her psyche, the older woman aspect of the original character is arguably important. If we're trying to overcome old biases against the so-called spinster, we should also embrace her as an aging woman. The film's marketing goes so far as to cast Cruella as a symbol of female empowerment.
I am woman. Hear me roar.
Which can be tricky to reconcile with the whole devilish core of her character.
It's that devil woman.
Her unstable mind and sociopathic tendencies risk undercutting and confusing any feminist rhetoric she might spout. Still, her conflict is related to her gender.
She has a terrible temper on her.
Her rage taps into a bigger anti-patriarchal rage. Even her madness is that of a woman driven mad by a world that tries to force her into a box that doesn't fit.
From the very beginning, I realized I saw the world differently than everyone else. That didn't sit well with some people.
There's also sexism woven into the tradition of villainizing Cruella and other spinster-esque baddies. Female Disney villains resemble what we collectively assume the spinster must feel: envy of youth, and fear of becoming old, ugly, and spinster-esque.
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
They're striving for what's not theirs, whether that's Rapunzel's hair or a couple's puppies, embodying society's anxieties about aging unattached women, rather than the possibility that a single woman could grow old gracefully or find fulfillment in another sphere besides domesticity. The socially acceptable role for a spinster is represented in the original 101 Dalmatians by Nanny, who acts as Cruella's foil.
A wonderful cook and housekeeper. She's such a kind, understanding soul. At times, she seems almost canine.
Nanny delivers Perdita's puppies.
The puppies are here! Oh, the puppies are here!
And dutifully protects Roger and Anita from threats.
You're not coming in here?
The message here is that you can at least still fit in as a single woman as long as you serve a family and uphold notions of what the perfect family looks like. Still, the best you can hope for is to be a bumbling sidekick who doesn't even get to have her own first name. By so boldly pushing back against these rigid expectations, Cruella has managed to become a powerful feminist icon of sorts, as well as a gay icon, as some viewers have read her as queer-coded. As much as Cruella's stories have hit us over the head with the message that she's a wicked witch who must be defeated, the real takeaway for many audiences has long been an awe of her independence, differentness, and devil-may-care attitude toward the world.
This doesn't have to be a scene.
It really, really does.
Even if Cruella was struck down so Roger and Anita's perfect 1950s life full of puppies or babies could be affirmed, on a more subconscious level, Cruella's irresistible flair and confidence demonstrated that their traditional married life isn't the situation everyone wants or needs.
I've no use for babies.
As her solo film underlines, Cruella de Vil has always been a symbol of female rebellion. She doesn't give a damn what a woman ought to act like.
A bit of an extreme side. Yes, darling. And what fun that is.
And our enduring fascination with her shows that people have always related to what she represents: the power of choice, wildness, and the thrill of feeling bad to the bone.
People do need a villain to believe in.
This is The Take on your favorite movies, shows, and culture.
Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us.
Please subscribe and never miss a take.
Thanks so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Right now, I'm checking out Paula Scher's Skillshare original on designing a dynamic brand identity. Paula is one of the world's most renowned graphic designers, and her class provides viewers with a behind-the-scenes look into some of her career's biggest projects for Jazz at Lincoln Center, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and more. You'll walk away with incredible takeaways that you can apply to your own branding. Right now, Skillshare is offering our viewers 30% off an annual premium membership. But that's only if you're one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below. So join today and jumpstart your creative journey.